We're back with this limited rate up summoning banner. This is one of the great banners in the game with all units available, and what makes it better is that you can pick 2 mages to increase their rate up to 50%, like 0.50% I mean. And as you can see, I already picked the 2 Wizard Kings over here, and I already did bunch of summoning. As you can see, it's like from 200 I did like 160 summons, which is more than what I wanted to, but I'm gonna show you the results later on in a separate video. Other than that, I'm gonna have a tier list over here to who you must summon, who are worthy for dupes, the second best ones, and who I do not recommend at all. But again, I gotta say that this is just my suggestions, what I think is the best. You should go for whoever you want, whoever you think is the best unit for yourself, and just enjoy the game, obviously. Just to show you guys, these are the 9 characters that you can select so that their rate up will increase, and also their skill page as well. Now let's talk about each one of them. The first character in the banner, the Black Asta, the red defender one, he's one of the best units in the game. Like, he's not only a defender, he can also attack massively when his HP is lower than 30%. So that's his passive skill over here, the anti-magic. So per 1500 defense grants 15% increased damage dealt. So whenever you have this anti-magic present on himself, you can have this increased damage dealt, which is lower than 40%. I think I said 30, my bad, so it's lower than 40%. Whenever your HP goes below 40%, you have this anti-magic and 15% increased damage attack per 1500 defense. So you need to build him as a defensive unit for sure. That'll be the main stat in your gear system, and the higher you get, obviously the higher the increased damage is. Other than that, it also can remove the barriers of the enemy, which is super helpful, and the combined attack also stuns the enemy. Overall, he's a great unit. Like, he attacks crazy. Like you see over here, the attack is, his base attack is 200%, and upon that 15% damage increase will go, like, it'll just skyrocket, and he deals massive damage at the end. His dupes are okay. I mean, you don't need to have his dupes to work well, but if you have like max dupe level 5, then you can have your whole team like immune to stun, which is like the best immunity that you can have in the game. So based on the things that I mentioned, he's definitely a must summon unit. I'm gonna put him here at the top, and he's a universal character. He works really good with different teams, with like different play styles, so I'm just gonna put him here, and yeah, like period. Now let's go to the second one, the other Asta, the purple attacker, Black Divider Asta. He's also one of the good units in the game. He's an attacker and deals more damage whenever he loses HP. So basically he has increased damage dealt, max 200%, depending on the amount of HP that he's losing. So if enemy attacks you and you don't get killed, obviously you're gonna deal more damage to the enemy, which is insane as well. Other than that, he inflicts HP recovery immunity on the enemy, which is super helpful in especially PvP for sure, and also grants protection for himself, removes all the buffs from the enemy, and also the more defense the enemy has, the more damage they take. This is great because usually in PvP, especially the higher ranks, enemies, they have high defense, and by this you can ignore their defense basically by inflicting 5% damage per 1k's enemy's defense. He also removes all continuous damage on himself, like burn, poison, what else, bleed, removes their barrier as well, and if desperation is present on self, it removes their immortality immunity. And what's desperation? When you have him at enhancement level 2 with 2 dupes, you're gonna have desperation, which grants immunity to all status ailments and grants an SPE plus 8 buff upon killing an enemy. So he's good if you have him by himself, like basically he's a great unit by himself, but obviously if you have him max duped, you'll perform better for sure. So regardless of having dupes or not, he's a solid unit. I'm gonna put him over here to must summon because even by himself, he attacks crazily, like deals massive damage, and all those other elements that we just talked about. But one thing that I forgot to mention, and it's really important, is that you need to have different type of units in your team. So you can't have like 2 purples or 2 same colors in your team, like 2 blues, reds, or greens, or even yellows. So you can have this immortality when your HP goes below 30%. This is important so that you won't die, because the lower your HP goes, you can deal more damage. That's why it's important to have different types of units in your teams. I gotta say, like, that depends on how your team is structured and what other types of units you have. So depending on your account, this either could go here, a must summon unit, if you have other types of good units as your team, or if you don't have anyone else, then I'll just put him over here to second best, because as I said, you need to have different types of units in your team so that you could, maximize his skills. But I think we all have like good units at the time, so I'm just gonna put him here, because if you have a good team based on him, then you'll be unstoppable. Now let's go to the Valkyrie Noelle, yellow defender unit in the game. She's one of the best defenders at the moment, and she not only defends well, but she also attacks massively again, depending on one condition. So if you go to the passive skill, you only need to have one defender on your team. Again, this totally depends on how your team is built, but if you have her in your team, you can't have any other defenders like the red Asta or any other kind of defender. So she needs to be the only one in your team, and by that you can have the Sea Dragon Spear on yourself, a stack up to 4 times. So the Sea Dragon Spear basically means increased damage dealt. For every of the Sea Dragon Spear that you have, you can get 40% increased damage. Just add this to the base attack, which is 100% base. I already leveled the skill to 110, and for the special skill you have 75%. So you can have 4 Sea Dragon Spear at the moment, and 4 times 75, add that to the base attack, so that'll be her damage dealt, which is insane, right? But as I said, again, you need to have only one defender on your team, so again, depends on your other characters that you got. Other than that, she also reduces damage taken for the whole team for like 20%, and increased crit resistance by 28% for 2 turns. So I want to put her here, must summon, because she goes really well with the purple Asta as well that we have, but you can't have her with the red Asta, because as I said, you only need to have one defender at the team to maximize her passive skill. So for now, I'll put her here second best, because I think we have other good units to summon. Next one is the Spirit Dive Yuno, the green attacker. He's a good unit. I mean, he attacks well, and he also has lots of speed. In his passive skill, it says that you can get 10% increased damage dealt with the Blessing of the Wind Spirit up to 5 times, so it's basically like 50% increased damage dealt. And also he removes total silence for himself, so you can for sure use his skills every turn. He reduces the mobility of the enemy team, silence them, and if you use a special skill, he does a total silence on the enemy so that they can't use their special skill and skill number 2. So basically you just lock the enemy away. So as I said, he's a really good unit. Like, he deals good damage and also reduces the speed and mobility of the team, the enemy team, so you can attack back to back more. But I'm gonna put him here, not recommended, because like compared to other meta units that we have at the moment, he's not at the best spot to pick. But as I said, like, go for whoever you feel you want to get and whoever you think is the best and enjoy playing. Next unit, the Fuegoleon Vermilion purple attacker. He's a unique kind of unit, I guess, because yeah, like, he basically performs well on counter attack. If you check his passive skill, he has HP recovery, and upon counter attacking performs an extra attack on all enemies for 120% damage, which is good because you're gonna attack all of them, and depends on how you build your team, it works really well. He inflicts taunts on the enemy, and upon attacking him, he can counter attack all of the enemies. He also does the burn damage, and the special skill increases all attack, increases HP recovery, and basically he's a solid unit. And for his dupes, I gotta say, if you have him leveled up to level 2 or level 5 enhancement and have 2 or 5 dupes, you can have that counter attack, which basically works well for him. But other than that, you don't need actually dupes for him, because you can have other units in your team that does this counter attack, like Kaiser, like one of the best blue units in the game that just got released recently. I have a video have a full guide video on him and how you can maximize his skills. I'll put the link in the description. Make sure to watch that video as well. And actually I'm using him and Kaiser and 2 other units as my main team in PvP, and that's how I'm reaching the last levels of the challenges. So based on the things that I said, I think it's good to put him here second best. I'm not gonna do must summon because, as I said, it's a unique playstyle. You need to have different units to counter attack. Some people don't like to sit back and do the counter attacking. They prefer to attack first, and that totally makes sense because like if they attack you and you get killed, then there's no point on counter attack, right? So I'm just gonna put him here second best, but I really enjoy playing with him because I like the fact of counter attacking and like killing the enemy without even being your turn. Now the other Vermilion family, Mereleona, I swear they have the hardest name in the game. It's impossible for me to pronounce them correctly, but she's a green defender, also one of the solid defenders in the game. She has 30% reduced damage taken and immune to stun upon having 8 speeds. She removes the barrier of the enemy, which is super helpful, and the special skill says for every instance of continuous burn damage an enemy is taking, attacks after granting a 65% increased damage dealt buff. This is the most important thing that you gotta consider for this unit. So how to get the continuous burn? You actually need her dupes. If you have her max dupe, then upon taking damage, inflicts continuous burn damage on all enemies for 2 turns. So let's say we have 4 enemies, right? And then so 4 times 65, add that to the attack of the mage, so that'll be like a crazy amount, like more than 300, which is insane. But as I said, you need to have her max duped so that you can maximize her skills, and it's not something easy to do. Based on the things that I said, I'm gonna put her over here because you definitely need her dupes. You need to have 5 of these characters so that you can reach enhancement level 5 and, you know, take benefit of her skills. Next unit, Dorothy, the red debuffer. She's the only debuffer in this banner, and I gotta say, she's weird for me. I mean, she debuffs the enemy with random effects, so it's either reduced all attack, reduced crit resistance, reduced defense, or anything else, but you can't pick which kind of debuff you're gonna put on the enemy. So it's kind of like a gambling situation, and you gotta go with whatever you have. But when you debuff the enemy with one that you actually need, she can spread that debuff, that nightmare effect, on other enemies as well, and her passive also does this spreading thing. So basically you're gonna debuff all the enemies, which is great, but again, you don't know which kind of debuff you're gonna put on them. So I don't like this unit that much. I mean, she's not the worst because she debuffs all the enemies, but I like to have control on what I'm doing. So yeah, based on those things that I mentioned, I'm gonna put her over here. Not recommended. Again, this is just something that I think of her. Like, I don't think like she's worth investing in because it's random, right? Like, say you don't get the debuff that you want, then the whole battle will be a nightmare for you. Now let's go to the good part. 2 Wizard Kings. The first Wizard King, Lumiere, the yellow attacker. He's one of the best units in the game, maybe even the best, especially in PvP mode. First of all, he's a yellow unit, so he gets advantage attacking red, blue, and green units, which are like basically the majority of the units in the game. He has his Wizard King's Dignity, which 50% increased crit damage, and don't worry about landing a crit because whenever you have this Wizard King's Dignity on yourself, which you're gonna have with the special skill, you will definitely land a crit. See? In the first skill, if this is present, lands a crit, which is like 50% more damage, and also the second skill, which attacks all enemies, again lands a crit, which is 50% increased damage and removes the immortality of the enemies, and also increased mobility for each enemy that is hit by crit. So you can attack almost back to back, and you get extra turn over here with the special skill. So that's what basically everyone does. They attack with the special skill, they get this Wizard King's Dignity, they land a crit, they remove immortality, they kill an enemy, and then have an extra turn and do the second skill, and, you know, kind of like one-shot the whole enemy team. But one thing to consider, he should be the only Harmony or the yellow unit on your team. So you can't have him, for example, with Valkyrie Noelle, the yellow Noelle. So based on that, he needs to be the only yellow unit in your team so that you can have his full passive run. But I don't think that's a hard thing to do because we don't have many good yellow units in the game at the moment. So for sure, he's a must summon, a must pull. I'm gonna put him over here. and maybe like at the first. Why can I do that? Okay, yes, at the first of this list. And last but definitely not least, the other Wizard King, Julius, the blue attacker. He's a great unit in the game. He's solid, attacks very well, and performs perfectly with other units in the game. He stuns the enemy with the special skill and reduces their mobility, obviously gets an extra turn upon killing an enemy, and the second skill also inflicts a time stop. Basically, this increases the cooldown of skill number 2 by 1 turn for the enemies, which is great. Again, increased speed level for himself, so you can attack faster, and every turn grants time accumulation, stacks up to 5 times, and this basically means increased damage dealt by 10%, so in total will be 50%, and this is easy to do because every turn you're gonna have one of these things stacked up, and after 5 turns you're gonna have extra 50% of damage. Now, the dupe system over here, it's best to have him to max dupe because you're gonna have this temporal reversal, which restores him to 100% HP. But even if you don't have him max, like level 2 will also restore him to 45% HP, almost like half of the HP, which is great if you have him in the max level, because when you get killed, you'll just revive again with full HP, and you know, you can go crazy on the enemy team. So basically he doesn't die if you build him correctly. And based on that, for sure I'm gonna put him over here. The 2 Wizard Kings will be in must summons, and 2 Astas will be here as well. And with that, we finish our tier list. This is the full picture of it with the summoning units that we have at the moment. Let me know down on the comment sections what are your thoughts, or if you want to change any of these units like priorities. But for now, I think the top 4, like the 2 Astas and the 2 Wizard Kings, should be your priority because they are mainly universal characters and like the best ones at the time. But again, as I said, if you have this Mereleona like to enhancement level 4, you just need 1 dupe of her. She's also good to invest in because with max level enhancement she'll be impossible to kill, and these 2 are kind of like depending on your team. This Noelle can't go with the Wizard King, and this Vermilion needs counter attack, and I don't think these 2 are worth summoning at the moment. But again, as I said, this is just my suggestions, and go with whoever you think is the best, because at the end of the day you just want to have fun playing the game. And yep, that's it. Let me know down on the comment section if you have anything else, and I'll have more videos of each of the units build up and teams so that you can maximize their skills. Have fun and stay tuned.